have a look around. But take a look in. If I was take a look through, yeah.
We both got pictures from my grandma.
About 7-8 years ago now it was, we repurposed this space and put these shelving units in and moved all our artifacts that are not on display into these rooms. And this one we made the clothing room. So we have some interesting pieces here which certainly have a history to them. This one we think is one of our oldest. It's a blouse here, 1890s. We're looking at here. This was worn by one of the first settlers who came to Nelson when Nelson was being developed as primarily a mining town initially, but soon diversified into various other industries, and many of the houses you see around Nelson date from the 1890s period. So it's quite a bit of money in the town then, and all the development going on. We do have some things which are from the bunker era though. You know, this is like as you see Mike Myers in Austin Powers, you might see something like that within there. But we also have this. This is a wedding dress here from 1923.
Oh.
And we know the story on this one. It was actually the woman who wore it. Got married at St. Saviour's Church here in Nelson. And the story is in the newspaper. So we have that. It even talks about little pearl decoration at the hip there. So it's very nice. We also have some furs as well. So this is Greenwood furs. So they were on Baker Street here in Nelson. This dates from about 1930s, 40s period, I think. And it's anybody want to have a hazard a guess of what fur this might be?
Yeah.
No.
Beaver.
No, smaller. Go smaller.
Oh, small.
No.
It's really small. So I
Yeah.
think
Muskrat.
Muskrat.
There we go.
that's a lot of.
You got the point for today. Well done.
Imagine how like about 10 of them to make that.
Oh, I know. Yes. Many muskrats, I think. We do have some military clothing in here. This is all original stuff. This is a jacket from the Second World War. This is worn by a man who was locally a local man. He actually served in the American Air Forces, though, we know, and he was in these B-17 bombers over Europe and survived the war. He was one of the, I think he was a side gunner actually. He would be in the aircraft, trying to protect it against fighters and such like. But anyway, that's what he wore and came back to us here, and here it is now.
That would be an intense job, like reading down. Scary.
The First World War. So we have a lot of clothing linked to the First World War, because there was quite a community from Nelson who served in that conflict. There was even a battalion of Kootenai men who was, or two battalions of Kootenai men who was formed. They were formed in the war. The first to go was the 54th Battalion, and this was worn by a member of that unit from Nelson, and they served in some of those horrible battles, the Somme, Vimy Ridge, Ashendale. You know, there were some of the units were involved in gas attacks and pretty horrible things, but there are 250 names on the cenotaph of men who didn't come back, of course. But this is what they were wearing in the trenches there. Now we also have something from an earlier conflict. Anybody heard of the Boer War? Yeah, Boer War. Yes, the Boer War was fought in South Africa about 1900, and the Boers were Dutch descendants who settled there. They came into conflict with the British Empire. on diamonds and gold that was there really for the most part, I think. But anyway, a contingent of men went over from the Cubanese. And this was born by one of those. They were on horseback there, and they were traveling around South Africa. He became a lieutenant. And this was their uniform. They, a man called Edmund Rag, they were called. So you've been to Rag Beach?
Yes.
Yes?
Beautiful.
Okay, so it's named after the family.
Oh, okay, cool.
There you go. And Edmund Rag was he was a lawyer in town. He lived on Observatory Street, quite a nice house up there. Lived to be 99 when he passed away. The uniform came to the museum. And then we have this.
Whoa.
I know, isn't that something?
That's different.
It's very different, yes. Even has a waistcoat.
Oh, look at it. Oh.
Somebody, yeah, I know what it's like.
Oh, the lining of that is
Yeah, it's very, very beautiful. I mean, you know, the design, I've had
I
tailors
wonder
in
who-
here looking at this and going, wow, that's really quite a piece of work. Tailored in Montreal, we know. And it was for a man from Nelson, very important man in the history of Nelson. Alexander Carey, his name is. And he was probably the leading architect of Nelson, really. He designed most of our schools, a lot of the heritage homes, even worked on the courthouse building across the road, our building at the museum. The KWC block with the big turret on Baker Street, if you go up there, you can't miss it. It's the biggest building on Baker Street. He designed that. So he was quite significant as a designer, but he was also very good with a rifle. So we have his medal to prove it, actually, marksmanship medals. And he was put in charge of a military unit called the Rocky Mountain Rangers.
Oh.
Yeah. And they had a depot here in Nelson, so he became a captain of the unit. Never saw action. But according to his family, he liked to look his best at all times. So we had this uniform made especially. It's not an official uniform. To look the part, I think, is probably the right way of saying it. And that was his uniform. So
Was it ever known who made it exactly?
yeah, we have the details. Yeah, it's a tailor in Montreal, and they were quite distinguished tailors. So, yeah, they probably had a little bit of money, so I think that they could do that. And anyway, but yeah, it's almost like something out of, I don't know, Wellington against Napoleon, isn't it? Something one of those things. But anyway, it's quite something. And then we also have this.
Oh.
Right.
He thinks it's, what is it?
It's not a hat. It looks like a suitcase or a briefcase.
Well, it is a case. It's a case for a hat.
Yeah.
And we have a little key because it's a very special item inside.
It's to be kept in there. Huh?
Yeah, and here it is. Here's our top hat. That's where it's yeah, not bad, is it?
It's a very
Lovely cork interior. It's actually made in London, England, but it's probably Canadian beaver that they've used because this is plush beaver. Obviously, being from England, I know it's raised quite a lot, so I'm sure it was greatly in demand. The beaver, and but came back here to Nelson. This one, I'm not sure who actually owned this, which is a bit of a shame, but it's certainly a lovely piece anyway.
Can't you win any more than that like that?
half a case.
Yeah,
Look how far
that's
it can go
something.
up.
We have some over here which were
7
for
times.
women. So
Like
that's
10
as well.
times at least, maybe.
And we also have some clothes that were worn by the Duckaball community from the area. So Duckaballs, they made their own clothes traditionally, very skilled in agriculture, and had quite an industry here of fruit growing, brickworks. They live communally, so they have like these communities set up across the Stoke Valley, Grand Forks, Castlegar areas, and Discovery Centre Museum there as well now. Which talks about these people who came, and they were very successful, especially in the early years. Then there were problems. They had their leader, their spiritual leader, was actually killed in a train bombing, 1924. Never solved who did that. it's a real one of the kind of sort of big murder mysteries still today. But him and some other people as well died in this. Maybe he wasn't even the target, but anyway, he was killed, and then that caused uncertainty, and there was division within the community, the Dukkabor community. Some very some people wanted to become more sort of westernized, and some more orthodox, and that caused sort of a schism, and then there were bombings, and there were against within the community, and then against the government here as well, because there was certainly division on schooling of the children and how they should be schooled, whether in a traditional way that the Dukkabors wanted to do, or whether the way the government wanted to do. Some of the children were taken away from the parents to be schooled in that way, so that's caused a lot of lasting damage.
Very similar to the indigenous too. Very similar.
So yeah, there's a bit of a history.
They also had problems with the indigenous people in some in the Castlegar area.
Yeah, there is. Yes. So yes, there's quite a story there I tell you. It's certainly worth looking into. And as I say, there is a little museum in Castlegar there. If you want to take a walk there, just near the airport there, which tells about more.
I went there before quite a few years ago. It was pretty cool for like a school field trip.
Yeah.
Some pretty cool history there.
And Selkirk College has the Muir Center for Peace, which is a collaboration between the Indigenous peoples and them.
Yeah. So we have that. I mean, we also have going on. We have all sorts of organisation pieces here in the collection, of course. If you were in the Boy Scouts, you know, you might get there, see something like this, or the Girl Guides. We have the cadets, even we have, and the schools. If you went to Alby Rogers, you may have worn something like this. Our high school in.
I wish we got those.
No, really.
I didn't get one.
Well, this was a different the shell suit. No. Yes, no, I didn't get one out of it. Anyway, there we go. But we also had a university here in Nelson. Called Notre Dame University. So it was started by the Catholic Diocese here in the 1950s and became a fully French university in the 60s. That was taken over by the government in the 70s and closed by the government in the 80s. So that's pretty much the story on that. But it was quite a facility here. Students would be coming here.
Where was it before?
Well, most of it was taken over by the college, Selkirk College.
That's what it
Here.
was.
So if you go up to in Fairview there, that was the main area there.
Okay, so 10th Street campus is where
Yeah,
it was,
yeah, that's right. Some of the buildings still remain. And there was also, I mean, education is quite interesting because we had those buildings used by a Canadian International College that was here as well. Started in the 1980s and went for about 10 years, where a lot of the Japanese students came from Japan and did a year in Canada at Nelson. So that was quite interesting. Some interesting history there. But now, yes, it's Selkirk College. After those done. But there was a sports scholarship scheme at university, hockey, and also skiing. The national ski team of Canada was based here in Nelson in the 1960s. It's quite interesting. It's the first ever university scholarship scheme in Canada for it. It was here in Nelson, and very successful, especially in skiing, because we had 1968 Olympics, gold and silver from a woman called Nancy Green, who was from nearby Rossland actually. But this is what the ski team were wearing back in those days. And then we also have a little bit of Olympic history here. Anybody remember the Calgary Olympics of '88?
No.
Well,